How do I explain this feeling? The one that comes unwilling, the kind that divides my mind and puts my words into a bind. How do I explain this feeling? The one that sends me reeling, the kind that crushes my hope and leads me straight to dope. How do I explain this feeling? The one that's not appealing, the kind that drags on all night and makes my personalities fight. How do I explain this feeling? The one that wants concealing, the kind that highlights my shame and forces me to take the blame. How do I explain this feeling? The one that reminds me of squealing, the kind that's on repeat and reminds me of my defeat. How do I explain this feeling? The one that leaves me milling, the kind that takes away my aim and leaves me full of pain. How do I explain this feeling? So that's a poem that I recently wrote with the attempt to put into words that unexplainable feeling that you get when your brain's a mess. I guess the best symptomology is dissociation. But the thing about dissociation is it's like a feeling of unreality, a feeling of, distance from the world, a feeling that things are quite fake or that cause and effect doesn't quite link up, or it's very hard to place this specific feeling. And and I found over the years that having gone through issues with dissociation, so dissociation is a natural reflex. If you're in a car crash or in a fight or something traumatic happens, your brain blocks off, and basically it blocks off to keep you safe, because the thing that you're blocking off from is so extreme that it would be just unfathomable for it to stay in your mind. The problem with ongoing trauma, or like constant feelings of fear or that sort of stuff, is that your brain starts dissociating as just a natural course. When things get too emotional, when things get too intense, good or bad, you just dissociate out. Or you'll be just realizing that you haven't just been paying attention, or that you're sort of feeling like the laws of gravity or relationships or whatever just sort of don't quite apply to you, that you're sort of separate from the world. And there's obviously there's a lot of danger in that. It's not a very safe situation to be in, because if you don't feel quite grounded in reality, bad stuff can happen. So what I wanted to sort of do with this poem is break that down and use it as a little bit of a starting point to basically express to you guys that that feeling that you're feeling, or that lack of feeling, or that churn, trying to define the feeling now, obviously, it is a common experience in the sense that you're not alone with it. That feeling of unreality, the feeling of the brain crush, the inability to focus, all of that sort of stuff is a response to trauma, is effectively your brain trying to say hey, I've got you, I'm going to help you, right? I also wanted to sort of with this poem sort of highlight different aspects of that. I said in one, and you can click the link in the show notes and you'll be able to read along to it. But basically, like I sort of said, the kind that crushes my hope and leads me straight to dope. The idea being that, I know personally, and I know a lot of people that have reached out and spoken to me about this, talk about their issues with substance abuse, in the sense that you've got this crazy feeling, and wouldn't it be better just to lock it in and feel something? So you get drunk, you get high, you do something crazy sexually, you get this adrenaline boost, you get a tattoo, something crazy, you just you want to go, because to be anywhere else other than this vague unknown feeling. I talked about in the next verse there about it dragging on all night and making my personalities fight. The extreme end of dissociation becomes dissociative identity disorder, or what it used to be called multiple personality disorders. Now, I certainly don't have that, but there is this general sort of splitting feeling between, at times I feel different ages, and the ages that I feel correspond to times of trauma. So in the extreme, people, develop distinct sometimes not even connected personalities that are like sort of operate, sort of take over. But the less extreme version of that is it'll be like you'll have strong mood swings, or you'll feel very much one way or very much the other way. Like you might feel, at some stages, you might feel like a different gender to what you are, what you biologically or regularly feel like. You might be a bit sort of swayy there, or you might feel quite assertive in one instance and then quite passive in another. Distinct personality changes, still within the realms of quote unquote you, but there's a distinction there. So I wanted to sort of highlight that it sort of twists, this feeling just twists you between all of this. It's like, where do I sit? Who am I? In the first verse there, I talked about dividing my mind and putting my words into a bind. Obviously, this poem is me sort of talking about this phenomena after the fact. During these events, my words just disappear. I even lose the ability to, coordination, right? And what I think's happening is that, well, what I've read about happening is trauma when you're in this sort of triggered response, when you're dissociating, this sort of thing, parts of your brain switch off, and some of those parts relate to the ability to speak properly. So, not in a bragging sense, but clearly I have some sort of talent with words, right? However, when I go down this place, I can't get the words out. It feels like my brain's bound. It feels like the words are I just can't grasp them. It's like someone's taken the dictionary and just rubbed out a whole just pages worth of words, and I just have little ability to sort of recall. It's shocking. Even to the extent when it's really bad, I can't even say to the people close to me, it's like, hey, I can't talk right now. It's just like, it's like this sort of just feeling. Very hard to sort of explain, which how can I explain this feeling, right? I talked in there about in the fourth verse, the kind that highlights my shame and forces me to take the blame. And because it's like, this is the thing, it's like, it's always on. This is internal to me. This feeling is internal to me, right? So if I'm talking to you in person and I get triggered or I feel dissociated or whatever, it's on me. The thing that happened to me happened to me. It's me responding and you judging me. It's like there's this massive shame feeling of how I'm acting now in the moment. The fact that I've got these, this mental health issue that's debilitating in this instance. The fact that things happened to me in the past to cause this. The fact that I'm not well. So much shame. And I've realized it forces me to take the blame. One of the hardest truths that I've realized is that, it's on me. And it's hard to accept because, I didn't cause what happened to me to happen to me. I wouldn't choose it. But the only way I can get better is to take the actions myself. I have to see the therapist. I have to take the medicine, etc., etc. And then I sort of just talk about the idea of how these thoughts, this feeling reminds me of my past issues, past pain, and just leaves me just feeling just shit, for lack of a better expression. And, from a practical perspective, this feeling can come and go very quickly, and it can be minor or major. And it can come sort of as a result of something, someone saying or doing or speaking or whatever, or it can be sort of seemingly coming out of the blue. I know that if I'm tired, if I'm inebriated, if I'm sick, if I'm hungry, if I'm sort of, physiologically overwhelmed in some capacity, it happens more. I know that if I have a stress or an expectation about the future that I'm sort of a bit nervous about, it happens more. And if something really good has happened, it happens as well. So it's a little like on the extreme end of things. So I'm going to read it to you again. And like I said, you can, just to sort of, now that I've broken it down, to sort of give you that context of what we're talking about here. Click the link down below if you want to read along with me. How do I explain this feeling? The one that comes unwilling. The kind that divides my mind and puts my words into a bind. How do I explain this feeling? The one that sends me reeling. The kind that crushes my hope and leads me straight to dope. How do I explain this feeling? The one that's not appealing. The kind that drags on all night and makes my personalities fight. How do I explain this feeling? The one that wants concealing. The kind that highlights my shame and forces me to take the blame. How do I explain this feeling? The one that reminds me of squealing. The kind that's on repeat and reminds me of my defeat. How do I explain this feeling? The one that leaves me milling. The kind that takes away my aim and leaves me full of pain. How do I explain this feeling? I think the best bet in my mind is to introspect, to turn and face. I'm a big believer, as from a meditation perspective or from a personal healing perspective, to turn and look at what's happening. If you're feeling depressed or angry or whatever that emotion that pops up, turn and look at it, and it very quickly disappears. The thing is with this feeling is that it's undefined. So then I was in this debate to myself, I was like, how do I turn and face this undefined feeling? Well, that's, if it's this cloud of unknownness, I turn and face that, and I look at it. And, there are an increasing number of times that when I'm getting this feeling, I recognize it, because recognizing it is, training yourself to do so is the hard part. I turn and look at this cloud of unknown feelings, and it starts to dissipate. I literally see my vision just getting sharper, and I start associating. Part of the benefits of meditation, just basic mindfulness meditation, is that you draw your attention back to the breath. You return your focus. That's the act of meditation. Now, when I apply that skill to turning and facing my dissociative state nature, I've been reminding myself to return to focus, and then I'm now triggering that response and targeting the dissociation that's happening more. So it's sort of like meditation is giving me the skills to address these things in real time. So I want to give you a couple of recommendations of resources. It's going to be two Skillshare courses. The first one will be the mindfulness meditation, because if you're struggling with a dissociation or this sort of feeling and you can relate to it, meditation really does help. It's a long process. It's not like you can exercise in the gym once and get jacked. It's a long-term process. In the same way you need to exercise daily, you should meditate daily. So I'll link that course to you, and also link a course to a writing therapy, or poetry for self-expression, basically. Once again, on Skillshare, the idea being that I go through and break down some of my poems and then talk about how you can write poetry as a form of self-expression. And there's a bunch of other courses up there. The links that I'll put down below gives you 2 months free access. With that 2 months free access, it's a great way to support the podcast, because it gives me a little bit of a kickback. You get something back. You get 2 months access to Skillshare for free, and you can cancel anytime. So there really isn't any reason not to give it a try. Like I said, if you can relate to these feelings, and you want it to stop, or you want to have some headway into it, turn and face. And if you're struggling to turn and face, meditate. In terms of the writing therapy stuff, I get a lot of benefit from writing down and sort of expressing it, and poetry particularly, because you can express a concept in a short amount of words, but you can sort of play with the rhyme structure and all of that sort of stuff and sort of put it into a bit of a flow. That appeals to me. So yeah, check it out, and if you like this podcast, please review it wherever you're listening to it. It really does help to spread the word. Cheers.